welcome back to the Friday show brought to you by the Jockey Club. The date has not changed. It's still August 3rd, the Jockey Club Roundtable on a Thursday this year. That's a different thing. It's Whitney week. It's Hall of Fame, day before the Hall of Fame induction. Big time to be in Saratoga Springs. I'll be in Del Mar, but I'll be watching from afar.
I'll be there.
I'm Ray Pollock, joined again by Joe Nevels, our Bloodstock editor, and Chris Dobbins, the Senior Vice President of InCompass Solutions, which, full disclosure, is part of the Jockey Club family of companies. Welcome to the Friday show, Chris.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Joe.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we had Bob Helleringer, an attorney and a former racing office employee, on to talk about the Linda Rice case in New York. And Bob was talking about how in his day in the racing office, and it was the last century, not 2 centuries ago, but it was a little while back, talked about how they had to hustle entries, before cell phones, they had to actually, go and find a telephone or actually go to the trainers' barns to try to get them to enter horses. And Chris is here to tell us that the systems have changed a little bit, and it's a little more streamlined than it used to be with something called Interactive Racing Office. So first of all, Chris, can you just give us an overview of what is the Interactive Racing Office and when did it get started?
Yeah, absolutely, Ray. And again, thanks for having us on, and I look forward to answering your questions and giving your audience a little bit of background on some of the products we have. And so, yeah, our Interactive Racing Office product, we launched that product around 2019 before COVID. With the thought of, we really needed to modernize how the whole process works in the racing office. You start looking around at different breed organizations, the harness industry, even our international colleagues in the thoroughbred racing world, and the majority of the entry process has become an online transaction. I would say 90-something% of entries for harness through the USTA are all online now. The majority of entries international-wise are online now. And it's kind of that time, I think, where we need to start looking at how we handle our racing offices and handle business in the United States. And the service we're trying to offer here is to allow horsemen to enter their horses kind of on their schedule and not necessarily dictated by the schedule of the racing office. Our tools allow entries to be open longer than just that 8 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock or however long it takes to close the entry. So if a horseman the night before wants to go into the system, make his entries the night before as he's perusing different features in the system, looking at his inventory of horses and looking at updated medical records of Coggins and the health history. He can, at the same time, he's looking at all the information, I'd like to enter this horse in this race at, let's say, at Century Downs in Canada or whoever else may be participating. And he goes on in and enters the horse, and the entry will be sitting in the racing office the next morning when they come in and ready to be processed, and as a regular entry would be without having somebody walking in or phoning in. So it gives a little more freedom, I think, for the trainers to conduct their business on their schedule. The product allows them to assign it to, let's say, a racing manager for a stable, maybe a Maggie Sweet for a Todd Pletcher, making all the entries, can go in and enter the horses on behalf of Todd through the system, or even a Steve Asmussen, who I know makes the majority of his own entries. He's traveling all around, and if he's got to get on his phone and go, I need to get the entries in for Oaklawn Park, and I happen to be sitting at the fairgrounds. Here it is. Log in, put your entries in. We give the horseman the ability to look at the rundown, just like they would be calling the racing office and asking, how many horses are in this race and that race? And I see this also not only as a great feature for the horsemen to be able to enter their horses on their schedule, but it also gives the racing office the ability to, come in the morning and see that they've already made 6 races, and that they have to make 9. They know that here's the 3 races that I have to hustle, and go give those 3 races to the guys to go look and hustle the horses for. But I already know that I have the majority of my card made, hopefully. I know that's a little tough in today's time, but at least they have an advantage where they can at least know where they're going to be when they get in there. And then with all the other types of regulations and things that they have to do in the office today with HISA, it gives folks the opportunity, instead of just being order takers, to actually do a lot of racing office work that they probably need to pay more attention to than just being on the phone taking orders for entries. And so I think it benefits both parties quite a bit. In addition to entries in the product, we've also added the ability to make stakes nominations, the ability to submit stall apps. The stall app process is great because you can look at your inventory of horses and just select which ones you want to put on your stall app, ship it right off to the track. It pre-populates into Track Manager all the horses that you plan to apply for stalls there. And so not only is it easier for not having to fill out the application on the trainer side, it's easier for the racing office side to not have to chip all the horses back into the system to see which horses they want to accept or not. So there's just a lot of time savers, I think, on both sides of the operation, from the horseman to the racing office in that product.
Mm-hmm. Racing stables can be so fluid. You got 2-year-olds coming in, you got horses retiring, horses being claimed, private sales. Who is in charge of maintaining the inventory for each individual stable? Is that on the racing office? Is that on the individual sort of assignee for a stable? Who's keeping track of transactions, I guess? That's
a really great question, Joe. And I would say that really we're doing it in the back end to where a horseman doesn't have to do a lot of that when they sign up for the service. We're pre-populating it with, okay, every horse that you've had that's had in your name that's last start, and we also have in our system which certificates have been assigned to a racetrack under your name. So all those horses are populated, and if a horse is claimed and moved to another stable, we take that information just like we do in our Track Manager product today. As soon as a horse is claimed, we mark that horse and move it electronically in our systems. We do the same thing in our interactive racing office product. And the other thing we do allow for, because you're absolutely correct, in the 2-year-old space, horses may not have started yet, and where's my horse in my inventory? We do have some modifications coming shortly in that product that allow for you to add horses to your inventory, and or if you've retired a horse, you can easily remove him from your inventory of horses. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible on our horsemen to where they really don't have to do a lot of work to manage that stable. And to add to that, at the same time, we have all these wonderful things in there to look at. You can look at your charts, your PPs, the workouts on your horses, and get an overview of when you last entered, the status of that entry, when you've nominated for a stake, etc. But we're also adding in kind of those hooks with HISA. So, when you log in and you see that, well, this horse isn't registered with HISA, let me click this button and complete this registration process real quick. And that way he's good to go. And I don't have to worry about getting any notifications that he's, not eligible to race or anything like that. And we also have some alerts in the system that will alert the status of the horse, the HISA status of the horse. So if it's some reason that he can't race, it's going to be flagged on the horse in there as well. So, not only are you getting the functionality of being able to interact with the racing office electronically, where before you had to do it all by phone or coming in person, you can do it all electronically. And at the same time, you can see all these status notifications from HISA at the same time.
Yeah, the days of the entries being taken within the confines of the racing office are pretty much over. I think it ended during COVID. A lot of the draws are now done via Zoom or some other video call, I believe, along with your product. Mm-hmm. One thing to be clear, you'd mentioned you can see the past performances of your horses, and this was the bone of contention in the Linda Rice case. You can't see the past performances of the horses you're going up against as long as the entry box is open. Is that correct?
That's correct. You're not going to see any past performances for any horses outside of your inventory. So it's just the inventory of your horses that you can see everything on. And even in the rundown, you're not seeing the horses that are in the race. You're only seeing the total numbers of there's 7 horses in race 1. There might be 2 that ifed from another race, and there's 2 coupled entries. So you're not going to see, you aren't going to see anything that you wouldn't normally be privy to going into the racing house, and then and you looking at a board, or in a lot of places they put up the rundown on a screen on the counter that you can view instead of them writing it on a chalkboard or texting it out or calling it. You can just log in and see those types of things. And I should have probably said this from the very beginning. The great thing about this service, it's an added service for our horsemen and our racetracks that is free of charge, and so it's just something to help the industry try to move forward and keep up where everybody else is going. Whether it's international harness, you brought up a good point with COVID, where a lot of things have changed, and that in-person interaction isn't the same anymore. A lot of it's online, and I think these type of tools probably will get embraced more as we also have to do a lot more things online with HISA.
Joe?
So I'm going to trade my baseball cap here for a tinfoil hat for a moment. And this might not necessarily be something that would happen next year, but in, say, 10 years, do you foresee a system like this rendering the local racing office kind of obsolete? Something where you'd be able to enter things and maybe like I make a call to the New York office and, just all entries are taken in a central location for all tracks and are sort of brought back out to racetracks. Is that something that you see as a realistic possibility?
Maybe at some point. It's definitely the things that we talk about here at the Jockey Club on a regular basis of, should there be a centralized racing office? You still have to have your officials that do their work in the afternoon, and a lot of them pull double duty, whether it's the clerk of scales, your paddock judge, or your placing judges. The majority of them are taking entries in the office in the morning, and then they have their jobs in the afternoon. But I don't know if this completely replaces some of that, but it does allow a potential, not necessarily potential reduction of staff, but the ability for the staff to be doing things more than taking orders. When I look at entry taking, I just look at it as no different than if I drive through the McDonald's line, and it may not be a person at McDonald's actually taking my order. It may be a call center that's taking it, and it processes the order, puts it on the screen, and then all they're doing is taking the cash and handing you your food. It's kind of the same way here of, let's let racing officials get back to being racing officials and doing a lot of the things they're going to have to be more focus of attention on, especially with a lot of the new safety rules, and allows them to even hustle horses. And it also, I believe it gives them the ability to have more communication with trainers, get out of the office, have more communication with trainers of what kind of races do they have? What are you targeting? Because there's multiple hours that you just spend taking entries and trying to fill races. And if you can eliminate some of that just mundane work and let the technology replace that, I think it's good for everybody.
So speaking of the technology, one thing I've heard over the years is trainers complaining that the racing office doesn't know what they've got on the grounds. They don't know how to write a book because they don't know what the conditions are. Does this product can this product go through a population of horses and say, you've got so many horses that are eligible for this particular kind of race that you've written, so that when they write a book, they can look at it and say, there's 30 horses that are eligible for this kind of race?
Yeah, that's another great question. I wouldn't say necessarily this particular product adds to that, but I would say we do have a suite of products in our regular track manager that really does allow for that type of work. If you're uploading your inventory of horses, we have so many tools that you can produce reports of, well, I have X number of maidens, I have X number of non-2 allowance horses. And so if you're, at time of stall application input, we do have a lot of reports that you can put in that, okay, I now know that I am going to have this number of horses. I've allotted 1,300 stalls, and X% are maidens and X% are claimers from 5 to 10 and from 15 to 20 and allowance horses. That data is there. I would say the one area where we'll start releasing some more new products through interactive racing offices, a lot of that interaction with, hey, there's a non-two going short on the grass, and we find which horses, we know which horses have been running in that spot or might want to run in that spot, and we send a notification through this application that, hey, you have a horse in the barn that's eligible for this race, and the race is closing today. Do you want to put him in? So we definitely see those types of tools being developed, and the ability for horsemen to come in and actually search for conditions through the tool. Like, I'm looking for an A other than going 7 furlongs in the Northeast. So let me look at Delaware and Maryland and Monmouth Park to see when and where that race might be. So yeah, absolutely. Some of those tools are available for that. Some of those tools will become releases as we add additional features through this product.
So they won't need to carry multiple condition books in their back pocket then.
Absolutely not. That's exactly right. The whole idea behind this is hopefully to get away from that and put those tools in your hand and on a device, and they're readily available at your fingertips versus scrolling through a bunch of pages. And I've even found where some racetracks aren't even printing a condition book anymore. They're saying, hey, go to equibase.com, go to the horseman section, and here it is, or it's online and on my website, and go look at it. So I think even racetracks are becoming sensitive to the costs of producing a lot of things and looking at the digital means to deliver that information.
So that kind of rolls into my question then. I'm sure I don't need to tell you, the horse racing industry can be slow to embrace change, especially when it comes to technology. I mean, I can find no shortage of people who still proudly have flip phones and, might not necessarily be as attuned to, buying into a system like this. Can you talk a little bit about the outreach and educating horsemen about this technology, how to use it, and how that buy-in has been?
Yeah, it's been hard. You're absolutely correct. I would say this industry is very tough to adopt. I hear so many times where people are texting in entries to racing offices, but yet when you make them aware of a tool like this to where you don't have to text it in, and you don't have to only talk to Joe in the racing office, you can talk to other folks, or not even talk to them, and use a tool where you don't have to talk to anybody and submit this. It's challenging, to say the least. We've talked to a lot of horsemen's organizations about it, a lot of tracks. Tracks are a little slow to adopt it as well. I can understand some of their concerns. Some are, I may not talk to the horseman. Well, I think it gives you more ability to talk to the horseman because you're not having to deal with this type of just mundane activity, and not to lessen the entry process, because it's very important and there's a lot of regulations behind it. And I know each state, everybody is sensitive to the entry has to be done the right way. And if they're not claiming the weight right, and they're not, naming the right jockeys and this and that, there's potential fines. Not all jurisdictions are that stringent, but some are. And so you have to be cognizant of that. And I get that some are very careful about moving forward with that. But I think as we become more used to just doing things online in this industry, and adopting tools like this, it's going to be in the best interest of everybody to look at these types of things, and will be the way we end up going at some point. The racing official labor pool is shrinking. There's not a lot of young people in the business, and then a lot of the older people are moving out, and so there's a small number of folks that really have that racing office experience anymore. It's kind of the same issue that Heise is having with veterinarians. I think we're seeing that expertise that used to be in the racing offices. There's just not as many of them as there used to be, which kind of goes back to I believe one of your questions, Ray, of the centralized racing office. It may be that we end up going there. There's just a smaller group of racing secretaries that have the institutional knowledge that there used to be, and we need probably to look at how we can get a lot more of those folks that do have the ability to help other racetracks, and so tools like this are going to help everybody in my eyes.
You mentioned interaction with HISA. There's another product that I believe is out of InCompass Solutions called Equitabs, which is specifically, I guess, designed for horsemen to log a lot of the details that is now required of them for procedures and medications.
Yeah, Equitabs, we launched that not long after HISA launched in July. It rolled out in about September. It was a product that was originally called our electronic treatment record system, but when HISA was born and introduced to the industry, we knew we needed to look at that product, expand its capabilities, and allow for not just veterinarians, but covered responsible folks to be able to report their treatment records to either a commission who there are some commissions that require that those treatments go to them, and then in addition, we tried to move those that paperwork for or electronic records from just the commissions to HISA without people having to do duplicative effort. And so, we have 4 states currently that are signed up for it that require submission of treatments. And at the same time, that anytime that a covered horse has a treatment done on it, that information is sent to HISA to satisfy their requirements as well. And so it eliminates a lot of that double entry for our folks. And again, that is a free service for our covered responsible people they can use their HISA credentials to log in. They don't have to create an account directly through us, but we have a nice little portal where you put in your HISA credentials, takes you right in. You put in your treatment records and or your health information of your horse, the Coggins date, health certificates, and your vaccinations, and all that information flows directly over to HISA. The same time, when we're talking about health information of Coggins health certificates and vaccinations, at the same time that information will flow into our track manager system to help satisfy the regulations in the state. And typically all that information is put in there by just handing that information to the racing office and they chip it in. But going into our Equitabs and updating that, it automatically flows to HISA, to our track manager product as well.
So what's the best way for people to get this, to find out more about this information?
So definitely, you can definitely go to our website and InCompass-Solutions.com. There's links to Equitabs and to our interactive racing office product there, but you can go to Equitabs.com and check that out. So definitely recommend if you haven't, anybody that hasn't been there, look at those products. Register with both, and if you need to upload your treatments to your state and or to HISA, it's easily accomplished through Equitabs. And if you're looking to interact with the racing office, check out our interactive racing office platform and see if the track that you'd like to participate is accepting interactions with them in that manner. We have about 24 tracks currently that offer various services through that platform. Keeneland does stall applications through there. So the majority of all their stall applications are all done online, and they require their horsemen to go over there and fill those out. It's been a nice, easy process for them through that. Log in, create an account, and see if your track will let you interact with you. And if your track's not on there, let's figure out, reach out to us here at InCompass, to our contact us page, and let's reach out to the track together and see if we can't get them on board to let you participate in that manner.
Well, sounds good, Chris. We really appreciate you giving us an overview of both of these products, and like Joe said, we're leaving the flip phone era and going digital.
Kicking and screaming.
I'm afraid that might
Some
be
easier than others.
That's right. Well, thanks again, Chris. Appreciate you joining us this week on the Friday Show, and we thank the Jockey Club for their sponsorship of the show. We will see you next week.
Support award-winning independent horse industry journalism and become a Pollock Report Insider on Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, insiders get access to exclusive Q&As with Pollock Report staff, insight behind our editorial process, exclusive opinions and on-site analysis, Pollock Report merch, and more. This is not a paywall. The website you know and love will always be the same. But if you want more, and you want to make our coverage even better, visit patreon.com/Pollock Report and become a Pollock Report Insider today.